everyone, it's Silvia. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about my honest opinion on 5 decks. So I would like for this to be some kind of a recurring video in which I finally find the courage to tell you my honest opinion about some decks. I started with a kind of an easier video because in that honest opinion, I was telling you that I really love some decks that are generally not really popular in the tarot community. And I feel like I should also give you the other side of the story. So I should also talk about decks that did not overwhelm me with ecstasies, that I did not necessarily fell in love with. Decks that are extremely popular by all standards in the tarot community, whether you're a tarot collector or a tarot reader, that simply do not resonate with me. Now, please let me be clear, because when you're saying that you love a deck that everyone else does not love, it's easy. But when you're saying the opposite, I feel like I need to probably not necessarily justify myself, and I will give you a reason why I do not love the following decks. But I want to say that I am not artistic by any means. I really cannot draw to save my life. I have no expertise whatsoever. I do have an appreciation for art, of course, and I have been studying it, the history of art. But even my handwriting is terrible. So I come from a place that should have absolutely no reason in judging somebody's artistic work. And that's not what I'm going to do. If I don't like a deck from an aesthetic point of view because of the artwork, I don't buy it. Simple as that. So the ones that I'm going to show you soon are the decks that I bought and that I actually liked, or at least I thought I did from an artistic point of view. I just did not feel like I had the means to move forward and transform that initial likeness of the aesthetics of the deck into an appreciation of the deck, as in working with it. Now, I also have something else to say. So there's a couple of shockers there, and I can already see a lot of people clutching their pearls. It's fine. I think that we all have the duty and the right to express our opinions on decks. I mean, after all, I do have a collection. I've been collecting decks for almost 40 years, and the decks that are in my collection, I go through them with, well, pretty much a lot of, ruthless judgment, as in, do I need this deck? Do I use it when it's a working deck, or is this actually a collectible item? Do I want to rehome it when it comes to the collection itself? So I really, please believe me, I mean no disrespect whatsoever to the creators of the following decks. And as a matter of fact, there is one creator who's also created another deck that I really love. So it's just that personally, I cannot feel like I actually connect with these decks, which is very odd because these are really well-loved decks. And I thought to myself, I might not be the only one out there. And so if you agree with me, please let me know, or this video is for you, for those of you who feel like they should hide the fact that they don't like a deck that is very popular because they're scared of backlash. Please join the conversation in a kind manner. Let's all be respectful. But let's start with the shockers. So this one is, this is the Spanish version of the Fairy Tale Tarot by Lisa Hunt. This is the Spanish version because the original English version with the bigger guidebook is out of print, very hard to find, difficult, and very expensive if you do find it. I was lucky enough to find the Spanish edition with the big guidebook. I have to say, so let me just, okay, it's not easy to open, but let me just open this. Okay, so this is the guidebook, and it is, as far as guidebooks go, I think Lisa's done a fantastic job, because it does present you with the elements that are, let's say, immortalized, embodied as symbols on the cards, and that will remind you of the symbology of that specific tarot card. So if there's a Four of Pentacles, there will be a chest, okay, a chest with fortunes inside. So that is a plus. I applaud Lisa, and generally speaking, I always do. And as I was mentioning earlier, it's not necessarily the art style that gives me pause. I like it. I prefer the Ghost and Spirit Tarot by Lisa Hunt, because it's just it's my theme, it's what I like. I like ghosts, I like spirits, and also I like the colors of that deck a lot better than the colors on this deck. But that is not really a deal breaker. And let's just be honest, the reason why I did not fall in love with this deck is because I did a very deep dive, like a really thorough deck study of this deck with my members. Like really, like it took me hours, and I'm not even exaggerating. When I was preparing the videos, it took me at least 3 hours for every suit. And the reason why it took me that long to prepare the PDF material that I'm sharing with my members is because first of all, I have the Spanish version, and the names of the tales in the book are in Spanish, and they have been translated into Spanish. They're not necessarily in the right way. So if there's let's say, Little Red Riding Hood would have been translated literally from the English into Spanish, but the Spanish fairy tale that is Little Red Riding Hood is not called that way. You know what I mean? So it was very difficult for me to understand what fairy tales they were talking about, apart from obviously Little Red Riding Hood, and all the majors one would have been easy because I know them. But I don't know 78 fairy tales, so every time that I found myself having to find out, it was like deciphering a book in Latin. And I kid you not, I hated Latin at uni. I studied Latin for 13 years. I really don't like it. I mean, it's very useful and I recognize it, but it was the same kind of labor that it took to go from the Spanish translation into an idea of what the English fairy tale was. And on top of everything, they're not all English fairy tales. Most of them are not in English at all. So we're talking about the Brothers Grimm, German. We're talking about Hans Christian Andersen, I believe Danish. We're talking about Russian fairy tales. We're talking about, this is absolutely something that I applaud Lisa for. She went all out. She went to, Pacific Islanders fairy tales, South American fairy tales, Eskimo fairy tales, Italian fairy tales. There's a bit of everything. And I love that. This is a major plus. The problem was that, as I said, it was incredibly difficult for me to find the fairy tales, read about them, condense them, and then try and make sense of what the guidebook was saying. Because let me tell you, when you go to the guidebook, it's not telling you just a summary of the fairy tale, is actually highlighting out of a summary of the fairy tale the elements that Lisa chose in order to associate that fairy tale with the specific tarot card. I hope I'm explaining myself, but that made it very difficult, because there might be a fairy tale that was centered around, let's say, the third son of the king, that is the most simple son, finally revealing that he has hidden talents and finally marrying the princess. And that's another issue that I've got, not with the tarot in itself, but with the traditional fairy tale. So, but because in that fairy tale there would have been, as I said, maybe a chest with coins, then she chose to represent the Four of Coins. The Four of Coins, sorry. Because obviously we do have this symbology of keeping everything, close to our chest, and showing this box with coins that is closed with a lock and everything. But maybe in that particular fairy tale, that chest was not very important, or the fact of keeping everything to yourself was absolutely not a key word of the fairy tale itself. So I also have to say, I understand how difficult it is. I am not an artist. So as I said before, I should never, and I will never judge the art style. If I don't like it, I don't buy it. However, I am an author. I wrote 3 books and published one, which is in some Substack, by the way. If you want to read it, it's totally free. If you want to follow me, but you don't even have to follow me. It's just that it's easier. But it's published on Substack for you for free to read it. So you can see it in the description box below. There is the link. I am an author. I've been writing plays, theater plays. I've been writing novels. I've been writing other kinds of books. For my members, I write more and more and more because I give a lot of material to study. And I can tell you this. I get it, I get the choices, and I know that it must have been extremely difficult for her to find these associations. But maybe we should just admit that a fairy tale tarot or a tarot deck based on fairy tales is just not feasible. You know what I mean? And so for me, discovering this, as I said, the art style is really not an issue. Let me just zoom in and show you the cards. The art style is absolutely not an issue. I like it, love it. If anything, I think that as far as the choice of the moment in the fairy tale that she chose to depict on the card go, that was actually an excellent job. She has done a fantastic job. It was a monumental effort. I will never say that she made mistakes. No, that's not what this is about. It's just that I don't think that it was to me, it doesn't feel very successful as a tarot deck. There, I said it. I'm sorry if I'm not saying it to offend anyone's opinion. If you love this deck, I will have you know that I love the art style. I do, and it's just that I cannot read with it. I studied it for my members, and another issue that I want to talk about that has absolutely nothing to do with Lisa's choices is that classical fairy tales are always the same. Women are objects. Women are a prize for a smart man / prince / you name it, to be rewarded with when the prince, man, whatever, showed off with their own skills, saved the kingdom, saved the honor of someone, saved the treasure of someone, and so on and so forth. There you go. I am the king. You saved my kingdom. I had no idea you could do that, but as I promised you, you can now choose out of my 3 daughters which one you like best, and it will be your wife. And I'm like, you know what? I'm so fed up with this. I know, I'm not being naive. I know that these are classical fairy tales, and this is pretty much what fairy tales were about. And it's also true that there's a lot of fairy tales with a modern flair. So the modern fairy tales, especially Disney lately, has done a fantastic job. I mean, starting probably from Moana onwards, or I don't know whether Frozen came before Moana, sorry. Maybe the Little Princess as well. In any case, the mermaid. The mermaid? The Little Mermaid? I'm sorry, I don't remember the titles. It is Mercury retrograde, please bear with me. But what I was saying is, I get it that modern fairy tales are better. There's no two ways around that. And I get it that this was a choice to include classical fairy tales. And back then, that was not frowned upon. That was what we could expect from a fairy tale. It's just that it still rubs me the wrong way. Especially because doing the study with my members, you should ask my members, it's hilarious because every time that I started with the smile and I started explaining the fairy tale, and then when I got to the end of it, I was like, and of course the prince can choose the princess because women are objects and we are used as rewards. And I was becoming more and more bitter because, if you do that for 78 times, it just, of course, at the end, I was really fed up with it. It's absolutely not Lisa's fault, of course. I would be very interested to see, and maybe there is out there a deck that actually takes into consideration more modern fairy tales that are women friendly. I don't even know how to say that. But I'm sorry. I just don't vibe with this deck. So let's go to another shocker, because I know that there's a lot of people that really love this deck, and it pains me to say I didn't fall in love with it. Okay, so this is the Gaian Tarot. This is the original Llewellyn release. I believe that there's been a Schaefer's release that everyone, let's put it this way, the borders on that deck did not do justice to the images on the deck and to the artwork. And then I believe that there was a reprint that only came out in July, I believe, this year. I don't have that one, because every time that I look at it and every time that I hear Tarot Tube or Tarot Talk talking about it, no one is happy about that deck. So I don't know, but I do know that everyone loves the original version by Llewellyn. The Gaian Tarot by Joanna Powell Corbett. I love Joanna's style. I love the Herb Crafter's Tarot. It's one of my favorite. I love the themes. I love the fact that it really deals with, well, pretty much with herbs, Herb Crafter. And I find it incredibly useful. I use it a lot for divination as well as for my personal practice. I just cannot resonate with this one, and there's a reason. By the way, let me just really carefully open the box, because the box is falling apart. This is the original version. So 1 second. Okay, so this is the guidebook, and it's fantastic. I don't really know whether the new edition has got a good guidebook. If you guys have the new edition, the one with the green borders, please let me know, because I am considering buying it. But I keep on hearing people on this saying that the cardstock is terrible, saying that the borders, the green borders, are obnoxious, just as obnoxious as the blue borders, if you remember the other edition. And there's a lot of complaints. I don't know, because I don't have it. So let me know, because the guidebook is something that is obviously very important. There's a lot that you can do with this guidebook, this one here. As I said, no idea whether the new mass market one has the same content. Why do I not find that this deck resonates with me? It's probably a very difficult concept to express. But the fact that all of these ones are Joanna's family slash friends slash acknowledgement, acquaintances and everything, that is the main reasons why I cannot resonate with this deck. I cannot vibe with this deck, and even less so, I feel like I cannot read with this deck. So it just puts me off. The fact that these look so much like real people, like it could be, I don't know, but this could be Joanna's neighbor. This could be her niece. This could be her mom. This could be a friend, and so on and so forth. The fact that let's say the faces of the characters on the cards are so recognizable, and not recognizable because I know them, because obviously I don't, but I do have this idea that the best decks for me to work and for me to be able to use them are the ones that present you a face that could be very generic. Not the ones without a face, that's another issue that I've got, but the ones with faces, if it's a generic face, I'm totally okay with. Also, if it's an archetypal kind of deck like the Ephemera Tarot or the Greek Mythos Tarot, or other ones where you have beauty for beauty's sake, but to be ascribed to the archetypes of personalities, then I'm okay with that. But no, and this one, for example, it's such a beautiful card. I really love this because I can't see the face of the person. Really love this card, and really love the ones where there's no people, of course. But then we go back to this one and I'm like, it just is. And mind you, that is probably one of the reasons why a lot of people find this deck awesome is because they can recognize the personality behind the faces. To me, it works the opposite way. I just can't. And I am so sorry, because this is a gorgeous deck. It's a gorgeous edition. I do believe that this is the best edition ever of this deck. If you do have the opportunity to find the Llewellyn edition, I highly recommend you buy it if you can afford it. Obviously, if it's an affordable price, or if you want it, because obviously you might not like it. But if you can choose between this edition and the mass market ones, the other ones, I would generally recommend this one. Now, this card is also showing you one of the reasons why I really cannot use this deck. I will have to force myself to use it, and when I have to force myself to do something, especially when I read for a client, it would not be a good reading, trust me. This to me looks like Walker Texas Ranger. I don't know if you watched the TV show. I think it's finished many years ago. But this one to me looks like the actor playing Walker Texas Ranger. So every time that I look at this card, I just feel like I'm reading. I don't even look at what card that is. It's the Lovers cards. It makes it very self-conscious. That's what really stops me from loving this deck, that it makes me constantly wonder who this person is, what the relationship is. Am I going to read into it? Am I not going to read into it? Does it resonate with what the card is, or doesn't it? Honestly, I find it very hard to concentrate when I recognize so many faces, and it is just not feasible for me. It's I need to be extremely professional when I read for a client and for my members. There's no two ways around that. That is my pledge to my clients. And so having to use a deck that every time I look, well, obviously not this one, but every time I look at this guy and I start thinking, oh, okay, this is the Guardian of Earth. Does it look like someone? Is it a person? What is this person's role in Joanna's life? I just get too distracted, and it's probably just me. Even this kid, this other kid, this woman, this other woman, and when there's a group of people, it's even worse. So that is the main reason, and I'm sorry to say it's probably the only reason, which is it's such a pity, because obviously I love the art style. It's very, very, very specific kind of art style that you find it also in the Herb Crafts Tarot. It's a really beautiful deck. It's the best edition you can have. Fantastic guidebook, but guys, I can't read it. I cannot read with this. Having said that, this is a collectible item, and I do respect it as such, and so I would not part ways with it. It's just that I haven't fallen in love with this deck. Sorry. So moving on to even more shocking honest opinions and pearls clutching. I didn't fall in love with the Rainbow Moon by Samantha West, so they now go by the name Sam Brooke. So obviously Sam Brooke, very prolific author. I actually love the Macabre Tarot because they also are the author of the Macabre Tarot. Many of their mass market decks have been picked up by Rockpool, so this one is also a Rockpool deck. By then it was published under the name Samantha West, because there was the name the artist goes by now, went by then, back then. This is the Rainbow Moon Tarot, and it's from a few years ago. I was so excited about this deck. I loved the idea of inclusivity. I loved the idea because, mind you, when this was published, it wasn't necessarily a new concept, but there were not that many decks out there that were actually inclusive in the images proposed, in the images chosen. And I think that it was fantastic from this point of view. Together with other decks, it opened up this world to tarot. So now tarot creators, they feel like they can actually be inclusive when they show or they create a tarot deck. And so, of course, I applaud Sam for what they've done. And as I said, Macabre Tarot, hey, one of my favorite ones. 1000%. I love it. I love the macabre stuff. There's no two ways around that. I love horror movies. You guys know me. Horror books, horror movies. But I just did not fall in love with this one. And as far as reasons go, I can't even tell you why. And it's probably the only deck that I cannot necessarily give you a reason why I didn't fall in love with it. But let's just have a look at it. Because on top of everything, this used to be a deck that I used to take with me when I was traveling. Isn't that ironic? Because I thought to myself, you want an inclusive deck because when you travel, you meet other people, and sometimes, most times, I do a lot of readings when I travel for the people that I meet, and I want the deck to be inclusive. And I think that I'm still pretty much enamored with the idea of an inclusive deck. It's just that this one in specific doesn't resonate with me. Maybe it's the colors. I don't want to venture a guess because then I will be second guessing myself. Maybe it's it's a combination of everything. Also, I will have to say this was a deck from a few years ago. I feel that Rockpool now has been fine-tuning their production value, and boxes like this don't come to you with a broken inside sleeve anymore. At least not the ones published by Rockpool. Other companies, they still do. The best one is US Games when it comes to the internal sleeve on these type of boxes, because they add an additional layer of cardboard that stops the cards from moving. So loving that one. But in any case, this is not a deal breaker. Come on, I'm not that picky. Maybe it's a combination of everything. So the product value, the fact that the book is practically non-existent, as you can see here. And you guys know me, I love a chunky monkey of a book. And so I don't know, for example, let's just go on a minor, okay? The Eight of Cups, as you can see here, the Eight of Cups. Inability to release the past and forgive, move on to a higher calling. Okay, I get it completely, but to me, and even though this is definitely part of the Eight of Cups and the way in which I read the Eight of Cups, it's not the main way in which I read the Eight of Cups. For me, in the Eight of Cups, I want to point out, if I had to choose just one sentence, it wouldn't be this one. It would be moving away from something that is broken. So it is similar, and I'm not going to try and split hairs. Of course, I can read with this. Of course, I'm okay with this concept. It's just that it feels like not every time, but the majority of these cards ask me to look at the card itself in a slightly different way. And I'm always on board with that when I have a full description. So if I only have one paragraph and one sentence for each and every card, I don't understand why it's focusing on something that is not the primary way to read the card. Does that make sense? So, and then it says, moving on, it says, you are finding yourself unable to find joy in your current situation. No matter how hard you try to find the spark that once brought you here, it cannot be reignited. It may be time to release what's no longer serving you. It's hard to let go of something you once loved, but remind yourself the past is not what defines you. The present is not serving you, so it's time to release and move on to your higher calling. I love the description. It's 100% beautiful and it resonates. Is that the Eight of Cups in its essence? Not for me. For me, the most important things will be to moving on from a broken situation, which is in essence what it says here, but there's something. And to be fair to myself, I did say 5 minutes ago that I am not able to actually point out necessarily why I don't resonate with this deck. I just don't. Please excuse me. It probably is. This is a call for help. This is probably a way for me to say to the tarot community, please let me know what you think about this deck, and maybe I can actually start seeing it under a different light, because I don't want to rehome it. It is not necessarily seen as a collectible item because it's a mass market deck and it's still available, and it's not very expensive. Rockpool is Australian. I can find it for $20 Australian, which is a very reasonable price. Maybe, as I said, it's a combination. It's a combination of the product value, the cardstock, the fact that you don't really have that much of information come out of the book, and the very few that you have is not necessarily hitting the spot for me. It's also a combination of the fact of the choice of the colors. Even though acid colors, I generally really like them. But I just, another thing, I'm so sorry, I know that. I should stop saying that I'm sorry. This is a honest opinion. I do not like the triangle pointing down, and this is not, so this is just for the majors. So had this been an alchemical symbol, I would have been on board with it, but it's just a stylistic choice. And mind you, this might not even come from Sam. It might literally just be the publisher. Sometimes they do that. Even when it comes to the borders, sometimes they do that. So I'm not saying Sam did not do the right thing. It's just I don't particularly resonate with this triangle, which is just for the majors. Yes, of course, it makes me recognize the majors immediately, but I mean, I'm pulling cards. When I'm pulling for a reading, I'm pulling cards. So I don't necessarily go like this and having to look for the majors. I only do that when I have to put the deck back in order, if that makes sense. So I don't necessarily see that as an advantage. And stylistically speaking, it's not my favorite. So when I look at it, it just doesn't strike a chord within my heart. And you know what? I would have to say, I don't expect artists to do that. I don't expect artists to produce a work of art that needs to resonate with me. But I, as a buyer of this product, it does need to strike something within myself in order for me to buy it. I did buy it. It doesn't necessarily resonate. And I did not fall in love with this deck. I can't bring myself to rehome it because generally speaking, I love Sam's work so much. And I'm still kind of hoping that one day or another, I will find my way around it. I don't know. Let me know what you think about this deck, because obviously I do value your opinion. Okay, the next one is somewhat easier because I've already talked about this deck when I did my unboxing of the deck. And I was very disappointed when I was doing the unboxing. Could not stop myself from pointing that out. And I got a lot of comments from many of you saying, yeah, I don't vibe with this deck either. So it's this one here. It's the Mushroom Daily Doses of Wisdom. This deck is a mini deck, one of the new minis. I love minis. This one is from Wiser, Red Wheel, which is Wiser, basically. The reason, and there's a lot of reasons why I honestly don't like this deck. And I would have to say, first of all, I would love for it to be bigger because, yes, of course, we love the minis when they are for traveling. Like I don't know whether I've already posted because my schedule in my head is completely upside down. But I will post a video, or I already have posted a video about my top 10 decks for travel because I am traveling. And so I always decide which decks to take with me. And so when it's a mini, of course, it's easier to handle, it occupies less space, so it makes sense. However, when it's not a deck that I want to travel with, and this is the case, is an oracle deck, I don't necessarily take a lot of oracle decks when I travel. then I would prefer for that deck to be full size. And this one is not one of the decks that have been published originally full size and then has been republished as a mini. No, this came out as a mini. The artwork is amazing. I love it. I love the artwork. Let me just zoom in because it is tiny. I will have to remind myself to zoom out for the next deck. So this one is, I love the artwork. Look at this. Look at the colors. Look at the background. So beautiful. So beautiful. Then why, you asking me, why do you not love the deck if you love the artwork? Well, because that's just the only thing that I like about this deck. That is literally the only thing that I like about this deck. I would say that I just realized when studying this deck, but also when comparing it with the Mushroom Oracle by Rockpool, which is also a mini, by the way. There's a full size and a mini. I realized that these, or at least the majority of these, are not necessarily, how should I say this, existing mushroom species or something like that. So when you turn the cards, it doesn't tell you which ones these are. And the reason, I thought to myself, well, I'm not entirely on board with that. I would want to know what the name of this mushroom is. And the reason why there's no names is because the majority of these are made up mushrooms. I don't mean made up as in a bad way. I just mean that they're not existing. They're not mushrooms you can find in real life, at least most of them. Obviously, some of them will be, or at least it will be recognizable as a mushroom that exists. But the majority of them, it's just a mix of mushroom-like objects, so things that look like mushrooms, and colors that could be associated with mushrooms in a mix and match way. And that's already, for my OCD mind, I'm already like, oh, why did you do that? Then second of all, as I said, the size, I mean, I would definitely prefer, because I do love the artwork, I would prefer to see it bigger, because, you know, well, I always wear my reading glasses, but when I'm actually struggling, even when I'm reading, when I'm with my reading glasses, I'm not entirely happy. But most of all, and it pains me to say this, it doesn't have any keyword or messages in the front of the card. So to me, this one, when I look at the mushrooms, because they're not recognizable, or at least the majority of them are not as existing mushrooms, and I wouldn't even know what to say about existing mushrooms unless I already know them. And I do know my way around the European mushrooms, but not all of them. I find it very difficult to use this deck. It doesn't resonate, it doesn't inspire me. An intuitive kind of reading. They're really pretty. Oh my goodness, so deliciously gorgeous. But I also have to turn them because the message is on the back. And when I look at the backs, it really tells me absolutely nothing relatable to the image in the front. So because of you, me. Apart from the fact that the sentences in and on themselves are not always hitting the spot for me, but that's very personal. I really do not feel like the sentence "because of you, me," as in maybe this means I exist because of you. You gave me a reason to live. You enable me to be satisfied with myself. You complete me. You can find some incredibly powerful and meaningful sentences associated to this, and you can do a lot of work on a sentence like that. But is it really something that you associate with this image? No, honestly not. Had it been just two mushrooms, maybe. Maybe this is a family because there's two big ones and two small ones. See, I honestly find it very hard to use, and when it comes to the aesthetics, because it's not a collectible item, it's a mass market item. It's very affordable, very easy to find. I just really struggle to use this deck. I struggle to pick it up. I don't feel like I have any part in my practice to use this deck for. And I might be the only one. I don't think I am. And generally, some of the messages on this card are really cheesy. Really cheesy. I don't mean to be offensive to the person that chose these messages. It's just that's how they feel to me. And I know that I'm not the only one out there. Okay, last but not least. And this one is, I think that this is a polarizing deck. I think that either you love it or you, I don't know how to say hate it, but you don't love it, which is not as strong as a polarizing. Let's talk about it. So it's the Maiden Tarot. I'm just gonna have to zoom out at least a little bit just to show you. This is by Anna Kirchen. I have to admit that at the beginning I was very excited by this deck because the Star Maiden has a lot of references to, as you can imagine, astrology. Well, it is the Star Maiden Tarot. Now, when it comes to the art style, again, I would say I really like it, and there's a lot of oracle decks that actually pair up really nicely with the art style on this deck. It's just when you start reading with this deck and those oracle decks, or just with this deck alone, it just doesn't resonate with me, and I did not fall in love with it. I know that there's a lot of people that really do love it, and as I said, nothing against I do appreciate the art style, and also the color palette is slightly limited, and that could be a problem sometimes for me, because if I don't like it, of course I don't like it, but this one I like it, I appreciate it. It's just that it is so very peculiar that it just doesn't work for me. And one thing that I honestly try every time when a deck doesn't resonate with me, I try to pair it with another deck, whether it's a tarot or oracle deck, to see whether that would give me the willingness to use it, and it just did not work. I tried using it. Ironically, the best deck I use it with is another tarot deck, which is the Divine Nature, I think it's called, the one by Yoshitani. Is it the Divine Nature? I don't remember, but in any case, that one is about fairy tales, and even though the aesthetics really go hand in hand with this deck, the meanings are all over the place. Honestly, I started using it. I was doing a lot of mental gymnastics in order to use these two decks together. It just wasn't working. It is two completely different themes, and it was my fault because I chose to do that way. But that was the only deck that will make me want to use this deck. So once you remove that from the equation, there's nothing that makes me want to use this deck. And I know that sounds really harsh. I know that. And when it comes to for example, the information that you can find on the cards in the guidebook here, it is actually not that bad. You got the upright position, the reverse position. I generally also agree with what it says on the guidebook. I would have to say that some of these cards are not necessarily peepish, but they're not like 100% fully illustrated, or they're kind of minimalist. Which is, a bit of a hit and miss for me. Sometimes I just need my deck to just pick a side. Either you are 100% fully illustrated for all of the cards, or you're just, all of your minors are just peepish, and in that case, it's a nice peep, or not a lazy one in any case. And I'm not saying that this is a lazy deck at all. I'm just saying that sometimes it feels like there could have been more consistency throughout the cards. Now, one other thing, and as I was saying about the Rainbow Moon Tarot, it's probably a combination of things, but also I'm not a fan of the bottom of the card here. I completely understand that you need a kind of a contrast where you're going to write the title of the card. So this is the Two of Swords, for example, because depending on the image on the background, sometimes you will have the same color of the font of the title. So obviously that will not be visible. So you need a contrast. So you need a banner, for example, but when you go from a banner, you just go and do something like this. For me, in order to fit with the card, it needs to resonate with the rest of the style of the images, and it just sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And so it doesn't necessarily feel like it's cohesive. Again, please understand, this is probably a cry for help, because I really wanted to love this deck, and originally I really thought that I did. It's just that it feels like there's these things that I talked about. And also I think that the major issue that I have with it is, see what I mean with the hit and miss when it comes to the minors, for example. I mean, of course I get the competition kind of energy of the Five of Wands, but when you go from the Four of Swords like this one, which is technically, theoretically, fully cynic, then you go to this one, it's not peepish or lazy by any means, but it's not fully cynic, and it's rather minimalist. So if you put that into consideration, if you put into consideration that I do have, for example, the Folklore Oracle that has a very similar kind of art style, but completely different vibes. There's so many things that would be, for me, for me, the justification to the fact that I did not fall in love with this deck. And I'm trying really hard to find a way to connect with this deck. So if you have this deck, if you love it, let me know in the comments below the reason why you love it, because I might have missed something. And if you tell me, then I would definitely consider it, because I'm the kind of person that I always consider everything that that you guys would tell me. I do appreciate the cardstock. I appreciate the product value. There's a number of things. And it's just it's also, a really nice gilding. The color of the gilding is very beautiful. I don't know, let me know in the comments below what you think about this deck and all the other decks that I've shown in this video, because sometimes I do change my mind. I keep an open mind to, taking on a different position. So that might happen soon. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon for another video. Bye!